Hello, everyone, and welcome again to the Elevate Your Equity podcast, where investors with a special emphasis on couples begin, continue, and deepen their journey to financial freedom together using the powerful vehicle of real estate investing to do it. Today, we have an amazing guest couple on the show. It is Amanda and Javier. They are real estate investors who were living in Seattle, Washington, and then fell in love over their mutual love of real estate investing. And within the past 7 months, Javier and Amanda have purchased 9 single-family and small multifamily units in the Cleveland market as out-of-state investors. And they're currently scaling their business to commercial multifamily with the goal of retiring from their W-2 jobs within the next 3 to 5 years. I will also say, too, that they are very committed, and they had left their comfortable place during COVID in Seattle and moved directly to their markets. This level of commitment is just really, really admirable. I really enjoyed listening to them, and I had a great experience in understanding more about how people can start off and grow their business together as a couple. And I thought it was a fantastic, very powerful episode. What about you?
It was. I love talking to Javier and Amanda. They're so inspiring in the sense that they're partners in business and in life, and they're just taking action and they're scaling so fast, so quickly together, with common vision and with common tenacity.
Yeah, and seeing the focus between both of them and working together, and then also seeing how opposite they look at things, right? It's just so great.
But also how complementary, which is really cool too.
Exactly, 100%. Without further ado, though, we can talk about this all day and then, never bring them on. So let's do the opposite. Let's make sure to bring them on right now. You can listen in on some of this awesome advice. So without further ado, here's Javier and Amanda. Javier and Amanda, thank you guys so much for being on the show. Great to have you here. How are you today?
Doing
great.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Excellent. Yeah, it's good to have you guys here. I heard your story a couple months back about how you guys are investing from out of state while working full-time jobs, and I got really intrigued, and I figured it'd be great to have you on the show to share your story. So let's start with that. Every story has a beginning. So why don't you guys tell us a little bit more about how you guys got started in real estate altogether? Hey guys, one quick note, please bear with us as we fix the microphone issues that Amanda had on the show. It only lasts for about 15 minutes, and then after that, it's clear as day. Thanks.
Absolutely. I'll start. So my mom is a real estate agent, and I kind of grew up around real estate. I would follow her to showings, and she always instilled in me the value of real estate as a great investment. And so as I got older, that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to invest in real estate. My mentality was really more around single family properties. And about a year ago, I purchased my first single family investment property in Montana, where my parents live. And I was really excited and, just excited to get started on my investment journey. And then I purchased the property and was kind of looking at okay, I put all this money into a single investment, and now what? I want to do that again, but how do I scale? How do I go faster? And so I started kind of reading up on, other types of real estate investing strategies, and then happened to meet this guy who was on a similar trajectory, and he kind of opened my eyes to some different ways to invest. And I'll let you kind of cut in with your story.
Sure. So, I work a W-2 job, and I was in a little mastermind group with a few coworkers, and we were kicking around some ideas. We have different paths. Some people in the mastermind want to write children's books, some want to start a farm, and I was thinking about real estate as a form of financial independence. It's something I love spending time looking at, researching, and actually doing. And so what I did is, I got connected to a mentor who invests particularly in the Dallas-Fort Worth market in single-family homes. So he taught me a lot of the basics, doing rental comps, grading different areas, budgeting for reno and rehab, looking at ARV and stuff like that, how to finance homes. And he really got me comfortable with the basics, the mechanics of investing. And then, I was looking at at this point, I'd reviewed maybe 30, 40, 50 deals. And I finally found one that I was comfortable investing in. And we were reviewing the deal together, and I was like, okay, cool. The down payment's going to be around $30,000. And I have enough money to do a few more of these, but there's going to be a certain point where I run out of cash, and the cash on cash wasn't really that great. I think it was like a maybe 10% or so cash on cash, maybe a little bit over. And I was thinking like, I asked him the question like point blank, like, when am I going to be able to replace my W-2 income doing this, or just reasonable living expenses, which was, I think I was targeting like $4,500, $5,000 a month, just basic living expenses in Seattle. And he said, oh, it's going to take, somewhere around 7 to 10 years. And I was like, that's not going to work for me. I need to switch my strategy. And I think about it like that day or the next day, I was on a Bigger Pockets podcast, and there was a waitress who, over the course of 2 or 3 years, amassed 20 units on a $20,000 a year salary. And I was just like, oh, okay. Well, she was doing it out of Detroit, and over the course of 2 years, she left that waitressing job, and now, she works part time as a real estate agent, and then just keeps investing in multifamily in the Detroit market. And I was like, okay, well, my problem is probably I'm not in a great cash flowing market. And that night, I think I was up, maybe till like 2 or 3 a.m. just reviewing different markets. I think that night I probably reviewed, I don't know, 25, 30 deals across like Kansas City, St. Louis, like Birmingham, and then I finally landed on Cleveland. And I kept on looking at other markets, Memphis, Nashville, etc. But I kept coming back to Cleveland like as a great cash flowing market. And I went back to my mastermind group and I said, you know what, I think I found like a market that can let me use my cash and cash flow probably like most optimal for like my goals, which is, eventual financial independence. And they're like, okay, cool. Like, when are you going? And I was like, well, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and maybe it's not the right time to go. There's like this moratorium, and I like just started giving them all sorts of excuses, and then they kind of challenged me, and they said, okay, so you're not really serious. And I said, no, I am serious. And they're like, okay, well, what are you going to do about it? And so that night or the next day, I booked flights, and I took some time off, and I came out to Cleveland for a week. And that week, I ended up putting 2 cash offers on single family homes. And then that was the beginning. And then, we met. I told her about Cleveland, and she's like, what are you talking about? No way. That doesn't, it's not real. But, I showed her the deals that I had done. I eventually closed those 2 cash deals. And then we put offers on 2 more duplexes and a triplex. And now we have 9 units.
That's amazing. I love that get up and go. Thank you so much, you guys, for sharing that. But I think for me, what I wanted to hear is how you guys got interested in real estate from the beginning. I know that you guys started the story off saying, okay, we're buying properties. Javier, it sounds like you had a mastermind group where, people are pitching around ideas, but tell me about the genesis of the shift in mindset, right? Where you're traditionally brought up in school and from our upbringing, right? From our parents who do as good of a job as they can, right? To train us up financially and everything. But we're so used to going down the W-2 route, right? Just trading time for money. Where did that deviation happen from you guys? So I'm trying to go a little bit further back than when you started investing in real estate.
Absolutely. For me personally, well, we both have demanding W-2 jobs. I mean, we're expected to work, lots of overtime and crazy hours sometimes. And you're trading your time for money in that case, right? And your money isn't necessarily working for you. When I did that first investment, I was getting a little bit of a return, but again, it was that mindset of like, how is my money working harder for me so that I don't have to work as hard in my W-2 job? And absolutely, as you said, that mindset that we're kind of instilled with from a very early age, that you get a career, you work that career, you retire, you have to earn your retirement, and it's got to be really hard and you have to grind it out. That is something that more and more, and we really challenge each other in that mindset a lot. We're constantly listening to different books about, abundance mentality and things like that. And challenging that belief of like, does it have to be hard? Do I have to work myself to the bone in order to be happy and to enjoy my life? Is there a different way to do it? And that is, I think, where we're starting to pivot our strategy as well in terms of what investments we're looking at. How do we really make the most out of the cash that we have and accelerate that strategy so that eventually we can retire and be financially independent?
Yeah, for me, like, why real estate, or, there were other things I looked at, but I found myself, spending so much time on Zillow and Redfin, especially after I got connected through my first mentor. He taught me all the basics, and now that's just my habit. It's just become a habit to look at deals, analyze deals. It's become easier over time. And especially now that we've moved to Cleveland, like, we're familiar with all the neighborhoods, there's less risk. We have a team around us. So we have construction partners, brokers, other investors that we're partnering with. We even have some agreements with other investors who want to partner on deals with us. So, like, there's a lot less friction in doing deals. So, like, it just feels really natural. Like, there's not that many challenges. The only thing is just, like, finding the next deal for us. And we already have a few.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key was really just action, doing something. And even though, we've talked a lot about our first purchases were single family properties, and there's nothing wrong with that strategy, but maybe we regret that a little bit. But the action step that we took and the lessons that we learned from just making that first investment and understanding the mechanics of how to do a deal, and then how to analyze a deal, and how to analyze bigger deals, and pushing the mentality of, we're looking right now, we're evaluating 59 units here in Cleveland, and it's a huge deal. We're talking multiple millions of dollars. And I think, a couple of years ago, I would have been like, well, I don't have multiple millions of dollars, so there's no way I could do that deal. But we've really, tried to expand or push those, limiting beliefs in terms of what's possible, and think creatively about, this is a great deal. How can we do it? Like, what is possible versus, all the limitations on what it couldn't be done.
Thank you so much, you guys. That's great stuff. It always starts in the mindset, and I love to hear your guys' explanations as to how you got started. And that's a great window to show. I mean, a lot of people have walked in your path too, where you're like, oh man, got to do something here. This isn't going to work for me, and so I think you guys had that fed up, that point in time where you're like, I'm fed up with it. So now walk me through, you guys, where you are right now, because at this point in time where you're interested in property in Seattle, like, you're living in Seattle, you're flying out to the market, you're doing all this. How did you get to the logical next step of flying out to the market? Can you walk us through, like, that's a big step. And I also want to hear a little bit more about the conversations that you guys are having as a couple, because if you put yourself in the shoes of some of our audience members, I'm not sure that there's that much commitment right now, but I'm sure they'd be curious to hear how you got that committed to head out and live in your market while working full-time jobs.
The timing was right. So, we're in a pandemic. We have this ability to work from home. And so we took advantage of that. We knew that it wasn't going to be, permanent, because we love living in Seattle. There are a lot of, like, neighborhoods in distress right now, but it does go down to, like, street by street, and you really do have to know the neighborhoods. And like, the best way to do that is to actually drive them, live in them.
I think, if I take a step back, we talk all the time about the kind of life that we want to create together, right? And we talk about how we want to spend our day. Like, what does an ideal day look like for us when we're not working our W-2 jobs? And so if we wanted to make that happen, the only way to do that was to dive in, head first. And so, coming to Cleveland and understanding the market, like you said, and building the connections here, that because of COVID, and we're very grateful to have jobs that allow us to work remotely. So we took advantage of that and have used the time here to be able to build that network. Now it's time to go back to work. We got to go back to Seattle soon. Yeah. But we feel confident in the connections that we've made. And I know we're going to be flying back out here a lot after we move back to Seattle. But I personally know that I feel more comfortable investing here and doing that work remotely now that we have those connections and we understand the neighborhoods and the market and all of that stuff.
We also did a lot of stuff hands-on. So we
Yeah.
did a lot of the work ourselves. We did a lot of the tenant screening and filling units ourselves. So we have a good sense of demand for our product, and we have a good sense of pricing in different neighborhoods, and what kind of tenants we can expect. And then also just we've had positive and negative experiences with contractors and laborers here. So I think we feel comfortable like managing all those challenges, and I think we're optimistic about the demand for rental products here.
Excellent.
Again, it's so inspiring that, you both are on the same page and you're doing this all together. And, for a lot of our listeners, they may or may not be on the same page. And if they're not yet on the same page, what advice can you give to them to just start, having conversations and moving them into the direction that will get them to the place that you are?
I think it starts with, what is your vision for your future? How do you want your life to look? And if that includes, working your W-2 job until you retire, then great. But if it's something other than that, it does require a commitment and some bravery, I'll say, to kind of take that leap. But I think that, you can start small. You don't have to dive into, buying 100 units or syndicating or whatever right off the bat, right? You can start small so that you both feel comfortable with the mechanics of how it works, and all of the different things that go into doing a real estate deal, and work from there. And it doesn't need to be giant steps. I think if you take baby steps, that's great too. And I think doing it as a couple requires us to have a lot of really honest conversations about how you're feeling about a deal or working with a certain contractor. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we see eye to eye all the time on everything. But I think we've learned a lot about each other in this experience, especially doing a lot of the work hands-on while we've been here. And so I think we've learned how to communicate and how to have those conversations without taking someone's opinion personally, right? We're trying to build a business, and so some of it does come down to business and numbers, and does it make sense from that perspective?
And also just managing risk, right? Mm-hmm. So like there's certain it's like, how do you know that this will be true? Well, like we don't, like, are you willing to take a risk on it? We need to have a conversation about how much risk we're willing to take on a deal.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And just for our listeners to know, can you guys share what your W-2s are? And then also, how do your skills from your W-2 transfer into real estate investing?
Yeah. So I do technology consulting. I work for a Big Four accounting firm. And a lot of my job is project management and analyzing all kinds of numbers. I also spend a lot of my time in my W-2 job thinking about what could go wrong. So you were talking about, risk analysis. So I'm always thinking about, okay, what are all the different components to this deal, and what are the points of failure and things like that. But I love, analyzing numbers and really getting into a spreadsheet and doing underwriting on a deal. And then, the project management aspect of it, keeping track of all the different moving pieces and making sure that we're, driving tasks to completion and keeping track of those types of things. I love making lists and checking things off. And so all of that comes in handy.
Yeah, in my W-2 job, I work at Amazon, and I'm a product manager. I've been there for about 5 years, and I think the skills that I've taken from that job internally, so like a product manager, I build a tool that is either helpful to people who engage with Amazon, so customers who buy products, people who use AWS, or sellers who sell their products on Amazon, and we build tools to help them do business better, whether it's advertising or moving their products from one location to another location to be available for sale. And I think the skills that I've really built is listening to customers, and then trying to identify new ways to make their experience better. And so like the skill from there is just like talking to potential investors who would fund our deals, talking to other investors who would partner together and see what they would do, what we would provide, and then just talking to brokers and stuff, so to understand or really communicate, what we're looking for, willing to bring to a deal, and making sure that we always maintain and build our credibility with all of those stakeholders.
That's awesome, guys. Thank you. And for our listeners, I think it's so helpful to hear because it's not a huge leap no matter what we're doing in our W2s, because all skills are somewhat transferable to real estate investing.
Absolutely.
And yeah, and Amanda, we were on mute, so you didn't hear me give like a hearty chuckle because when you were listing all of your skills, and I was like, oh my gosh, Amanda is like the female version of Derek, like list building, project management spreadsheets. I'm like, okay, this is
That's
hilarious.
totally me.
Yeah. But that's amazing. So thank you guys for sharing that.
Absolutely. And I think, we've learned as well, I think we have complementary skills. Like you were saying, you are so good at just, picking up the phone and calling somebody and making those kind of creative connections. And I'm more like, give me the data and let me put it in a model and let's figure out if it works. And so, those two components, like you need both in order to really be successful, I think.
Yeah, and I really want to honor you guys for this, because this is strikes at the heart of what we're trying to convey to our audience, is that it takes, in order for you to go, you can go pretty quick alone, but you'll go further if you go together, right?
Absolutely.
And I think, if you're in alignment, that's why these conversations are so important in the beginning before investing starts, is to get that high level goal together, right? The vision that you were talking about. Because when you have someone that has different skill sets or enjoys doing things that you don't, then that opens up the world. Even just one other person, which should be and can be your spouse, because there should be no one else in the world that really wants to participate in your success than your spouse, because you directly benefit from each other's efforts. And so I think that what you guys are doing, even though it seems like it's second nature to you because you've been doing this for such a long time, there's a lot of couples that may have to work at this and really have to understand that there's a give and take here, and there's a sacrifice they're gonna have to make, which is maybe not watching TV for 4 hours a day, right? Instead, like using that time to call brokers and underwrite deals or do whatever it is that your skill set is, but working together to both broaden the relationship and the finances in anticipation of a higher expected, a better place to be in a shared vision. And so again, it all kind of underpins from those conversations about vision. And so that's just really important. I just wanted to bring that up again and honor you guys for really just kind of doing that without really focusing too much on this conversation on it. It just seems like you guys were in sync there, and some people have to work on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, breath of fresh air. I love talking to couples who are in it together in life and in business. And, and our audience also, are probably wanting to kind of get a peek behind the scenes as well. Like, can you guys walk us through what your typical day looks like? And then also, if there were some hard times, some hard conversations, are you willing to kind of like, walk us through how you came to resolve those?
You want to talk about the Moreland deal when we first saw it, and then had a disagreement about like the rehab and stuff like that? I mean, those are simple disagreements.
Well, what I was going to say is I think, when we first got to Cleveland, I think we had this mentality of we're going to do it all ourselves. And even I think personally, we were both trying to kind of do the same things. So, you were just talking, Derek, about, how we've naturally divided and conquered a little bit, but it wasn't always like that. I think in the beginning, we were sort of treading on each other's feet a little bit, trying to do the same things, and also trying to property manage all of our properties and deal with all of our tenants. And it was a lot, and we really got ourselves in too deep. We were too deep. And I think that
and just like our day, we would wake up at 6 a.m., go to the property, do work on like an empty unit, work until like 8 a.m. or so, and then truck back, and then do our day job until like 8
or 9. Yeah.
And then sometimes we would go back and do more work.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a lot. And I don't think that was, the best use of our skills, but we learned a really valuable lesson. And, I think some of the like disagreements that we had were about silly things, right? Like what finishes are we going to use and stuff like that, right? And so we made a decision that we're going to hire a property manager. We're going to let all of that go. We're going to let them handle it. And I think that's been really for the best. Right now we can focus on what we're good at, what's going to move the business forward, and all of those decisions that ultimately don't matter at the end of the day, somebody else can deal with those, right? And they're much more qualified to deal with that. So
Yeah.
that's what I was going to say, just about
Gotcha.
disagreements. But yeah.
Like earlier, some disagreements we had, like, we looked at a deal, and I was really excited about the deal, and then she was like sort of not so excited. And I think like that night, it was like a little bit of a breakdown. And then eventually, like, we came back, and like the question is, okay, you don't like the deal, maybe you're a little bit more risk averse than I am. What would need to be true about the deal to make you comfortable with the deal? And then we start talking about like really what like deal is deal specific, instead of me feeling like, hey, she's harping on my vision, or she doesn't see what I see, she doesn't support me. That's kind of like the first instinct, but it's like really about the property. Like, how do we make the deal better?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Great
It's
advice.
It's all about communication, and sometimes that's hard to be really honest and to kind of take a step back and evaluate, like, why are we having this disagreement? Like, what's the cause here, and how do we make it better? But I think it's made us a stronger couple overall to have gone through that.
Yeah, great words of advice, you guys, and I can definitely tell that you've been there and done that. So that's really good, extra, wisdom for our listeners. I really appreciate that too. That's good stuff. I was going to ask you something along a related vein on this is balance. As you guys are working through this, I mean, obviously you're working really, really hard right now, and especially, when waking up at 5:30 or 6 and then going to the property, working on that, and then knowing that you have a full day of work ahead of you, and then having, after working, then going back. It doesn't seem like you guys have kids yet, but it still is a lot of time that you put into this. And I get in trouble for this a lot from Sophie, because I spend so much time in real estate investing, and it actually it affected our marriage early on, to be honest. And because I spent so much time in real estate, she felt neglected or put under a lower value or priority, at least in her mind, for what was important in terms of my time and doing that. So can you guys talk a little bit to whether or not there is a balance, or is this a sacrifice you guys have both agreed on, or where does real estate investing fall in the order of your personal lives right now? And how does that weave in?
Oh man, I think we relate to that a lot. We are both so goal oriented, and I think if you put a goal in front of us, we are both just like, tunnel vision. What does it take to get it done? And I know for the first like four months or so that we were here, that we just did that cycle.
We ground ourselves.
We really we did. And it was kind of around that time when we were like, we have to hire a property manager. We need to be more hands off in the day to day, the painting and the toilet repair and all of that kind of stuff. And I think, we kind of realized like, wow, we haven't done anything fun as a couple in a long time.
Like, people would ask us like, hey, what's Cleveland like? And we'd be like, I don't know.
We've seen all the Home Depots, but we don't know.
The Home Depots, and we can tell you about our properties, but we don't.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. So I think, we have that realization, and we're so thankful that actually my mom came to visit us about a week ago, and we got to take a whole week off and just go do a bunch of really fun things. And it was like, wow, there's life outside of what we've been doing. And I think just as we're really goal oriented on growing this business, I think it's equally important to have goals for our relationship, like making sure that we're spending time together and setting aside that time. And maybe we don't talk about real estate at all during that time. We just check in on each other and prioritize the relationship, because that has to come first. And we've always said that. And you're so good about reminding me that like we come first. Because if we're not solid and we're not enjoying each other and life, then it doesn't matter. Like we could achieve all of our financial goals, and it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, I think anytime there was a problem or, anything that was stressful, because like even moving from Seattle to cross country to another city that you haven't lived in before, even that's stressful. And then just, add all these other challenges to it. And I've always said, and thanks for reminding me, like if this is painful, like we shouldn't do it. Like if real estate is going to ruin our relationship, let's not do real estate. So it's like the relationship comes first.
Yeah, that such great words, you guys. And and just to clarify, when we first started doing real estate investing, and we were so hands-on, same as you, waking up early, working on the property, going to work, and then coming back, at 10 at night to continue to work on the property. We were doing it together, physically together, but maybe not mentally, emotionally together. And like you said, it's so important to have that conversation of like, okay, what's our target vision? And are we, we're at that time, we were just kind of moving through the motions. And I think when couples are first starting out, it's almost like inevitable, right? That they go down that path, and then they start to have those conversations later. But like as you said, if they can start, if they hear this podcast and say, okay, let's start having these conversations now, so we can maybe prevent these future roadblocks and obstacles. So yeah, thank you for that.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So I wanted to also back up and make sure we got a question answered that Sophie had asked earlier, which was, what do your guys' daily routine looks like? I mean, you guys are obviously packed with schedule, commitments right now. And I know that you guys are going to be preparing to kind of head back home, right? Or I guess home, however you put it, right? But what did your typical day look like, and where do you think that where you're going to be when you're back at home? What does your typical daily structure look like?
Yeah. So we try to prioritize, our health and fitness as well in our daily routine. So getting up early, getting a workout in, and then, depending upon, usually my day is stacked with meetings, phone calls. And so if I'm able to get in an hour or so of, maybe it's personal development, maybe it's listening to a podcast about real estate, or reading a book or something to that effect. Or if we're pursuing a deal, maybe I'm on the phone with lenders, or working in the model, tweaking the model. I right now am just kind of squeezing it in between all of the other W2 tasks that I have. And then usually at the end of the day, after we eat dinner, we spend like an hour or so maybe underwriting a new deal, or kind of thinking through the next steps on whatever it is that we're currently pursuing. So it's still, it's packed. It's a long day, and I'm just trying to fit it in where I can. And I think the other thing that we do as well is, when we are driving around, we're usually always listening to some kind of personal development, like mindset, real estate related, anything in that realm. We're listening to a book or a podcast or something like that, and kind of using that time to continue to learn and enrich, our mindset.
Yeah, and what same, we do a workout in the morning. I think, start working like on my W2 job around 9 or so, probably in somewhere around 7, 8. And then in between there, wherever I can find a block of time, I'm chatting with, other investors that we have on the deal. We submitted two LOIs last week, or this week. And then now we're, talking about next steps on those, and we're looking at new deals, and then looking for investors, passive investors on both of those deals. And yeah, that's how we spend our time. And then we fit in sometime in the evenings for a walk. That's what we also started. So like a 45-minute or so walk.
Yeah, that's been a new thing since the weather's become so nice, and that's a really great break in the day. It forces us to step away from the computers and the phones, and enjoy the weather and each other for a little while.
Very well said. Thank you guys. That's great. Good insight into your guys' life as to what someone may be thinking. Boy, if I want to be just like them, what's the day going to look like in the end? And so that's a good insight. I wanted to go and turn a little bit more on the technical side a little bit, because now, I mean, what you guys have built is pretty awesome. You guys have done a lot of single family homes to start out, and now it looks like you're doing more of the syndication / JV route. You're kind of toying with both of those concepts right now. Can you tell us a little bit about what you guys are looking for, and maybe a little bit about some deals you've closed in the past, and how you like to structure things, or just talk about the technical components of what you're looking to acquire?
Yeah, we're going through like a transition. So we're going from small multifamily, and then we're looking at larger deals, 10 units plus. We have, we're in a new mastermind now, and so there are a lot of potential JV partners there. We're really excited about working with them. And some of them are interested in the Cleveland market. So, we're working with them on deals. And then we also got connected to some out-of-state investors from California who are heavily invested in here in commercial real estate, and they prefer more distressed kind of investments and projects, and that kind of plays to some of the opportunity for value add. A lot of the buildings in Cleveland are older, 1916, 1920s built, so some of those have been poorly managed and have gone into disrepair. So that's an opportunity for value add. And they're going for reasonable rates. By and large, this market, like across the U.S., like valuations are crazy right now, and so some of those distressed properties are like some of the few remaining ones that we can add value to. We have a team ready, and so we're looking for investors who are comfortable with those kind of deals. And then we're like JV partners who can invest on those deals, and then also just passive investors who are interested in those kind of deals.
Yeah, it's really about economies of scale. We're looking for, I would say, 20 units or more at this point, because that's really where your money starts to, it makes the deal makes more sense, especially if you have to put money in for rehab and things like that. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity in this market. We've submitted an LOI on a property in Seattle as well. So that's kind of exciting potential to have a project there when we move back. And yeah, I mean, we are looking to just create some velocity, I think, in our business, and to accelerate what we've built. We have a solid foundation of small multifamily, but the economies of scale are really in the bigger properties. So.
Could not agree with you guys more. Less roofs to manage, less property managers, or at least property specific dedicated property managers, which is great. That's ever since we changed our model as well from single families and small multis to like the mid-size, like kind of what you guys are looking at right now. It's been a game changer completely. You get the cost segregation, you get all that good stuff that you can take advantage of.
Yep.
So excellent. So that's great. That's great. I want to hear more about your successes, and as we go further on down the line, I'm sure there's going to be many of them for you guys to share. So that's pretty good stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I guess another thing I wanted to ask you on the technical side is, you guys look like you're looking to buy stuff in your home market too, Seattle, which is traditionally a pretty expensive
It's probably
place.
one of the most expensive
Might be.
markets in the US right
It
now.
might be.
Yeah.
So can you guys, just out of curiosity, I know that Cleveland has got you've got the cash flow strategy. So all the people that are wanting to work with you, they're attracted to the cash flow and the stability of that, right? But Seattle is more of a market where you need to have some patient investors, right? Because
Yeah.
because in that market, unless you're doing something really creative, you're not really providing too much cash flow, but it's more kind of on the appreciation side. So can you maybe walk us through the conversations that you have with your investors and maybe the criteria, just whatever you can tell us about investing in an expensive market?
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's funny you say that, because we've gotten into the mindset of this Cleveland market, and we're used to when you put the numbers in the spreadsheet, you expect like, okay, that's pretty typical return for this market. And so when we evaluated the Seattle deal, it's a distressed property. It's it's about 8 units. And rents are under market, so there's an opportunity there. But when we put it in the model, we were like, wait, this like doesn't really cash flow. But the thing about the Seattle market is because the cap rates are so much lower, any additional improvement that you put into the property equates to potentially a very large return if you're able to fix the property up and make it, make rents, bring them up to market and all of that good stuff. There's a much larger return on your investment if you're able to do that successfully. And so we found some partners actually in the Seattle area who specialize in that and have experience in kind of flipping those types of properties. So it's a completely different strategy. The Cleveland market is, buy and hold, cash flow, long term. The Seattle market is really, it would be a flip essentially. So yeah, completely different mindset.
That's the exit strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
Doing some sort of BRRRR, right?
Yes.
Apartment building BRRRR, which is incredible. Yeah, Sophie wanted to mention too that we actually lived in Washington for a while, so maybe offline we can talk about where that property is.
Right. That's why I'm so excited to hear you guys talk about investing there, because we just absolutely love the Seattle area.
Oh, awesome. Yes, let's chat.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. And it's also funny too, but we also have property in Cleveland, and I helped get maybe 5 of our friends and family into the Cleveland market buying some turnkeys. And so I know a little bit, I've done some research in the market. I've been out there a few times. And so I'd love to, we can talk offline about who you guys are working with out there. And if we can add some value, we'd love to just pass along and make some connections. So
amazing.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I have a question. And this question is for Amanda. And so, a lot of our listeners may be, again, new couples, or even, husbands that have dragged their wives or, into it because
cough, right?
and simply because, not to say this across the board, but generally I talk to a lot of women who just feel maybe intimidated by the space, or they feel, or they have the preconception, true or not true, that this is a male dominated space. And for you, Amanda, what advice can you give to our female listeners that will help to elevate and encourage them to enter with confidence?
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that. I see that as well. I think it definitely is more male dominated. But my W2 job, I work in a very male dominated industry as well. So I'm used to that dynamic a little bit. My advice, I think there's a few things. I think, I kind of became aware of a number of limiting beliefs that I had around how successful I could potentially be in this space, right? And I think when you start talking about, millions of dollars or hundreds of doors, or, it's intimidating. And I think that unfortunately, I think that women are taught in this society to maybe not be as ambitious or to not go after those kinds of things. And so I would just challenge you to, work on that mindset, because there's no reason that you can't also be successful, independently or with a partner. And I think that if you are aware of your limiting beliefs and can work on that, it's only going to make your partnership stronger as well, right? And you were talking earlier about maybe me feeling a little bit more risk averse. And I think that some of that mindset comes into play with that risk aversion too, is, me thinking like, gosh, well, who am I to be successful in this area, right? And unfortunately, I think it's something that women are taught, but you can unlearn that, and you can learn a new belief, you can learn a new way of being. And like I said, there's no reason that you can't be successful in this space as well.
There's something else she was telling me in the car a few days ago. It's like, just be a part of the conversation, just be around. And then once you hear, people who are supposed to be experts say things that like don't really make sense and chase things, like you'll realize like, oh, you don't know what you're doing either. Like, so I can do this.
Yeah. And one other thing is I became aware of this dynamic as well when both of us are interacting with like a broker or a potential investor. There's a tendency, especially if it's a man, for them to want to interact with Javier more than me. And I brought that up because I want to feel like I'm contributing to this partnership as well, and that I have a say in the decisions that we make. And so we've talked about that dynamic, and you're aware of it, and you're so great about making sure that I'm always in the loop, and that I have a role to play, and depending on the task, maybe I'll lead a conversation, or maybe you'll take the lead, but at least we're kind of both aware of that dynamic if it does show up.
Great job, you guys. I think that's fantastic.
And just so much wisdom there. And especially when you touched upon awareness. I think, like you said, a lot of women and again, and even men, like we sometimes are unconsciously led to believe that we can't do certain things, right? But until we are even aware that we have those limiting beliefs, then we can't crack through them.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah,
amazing.
I think all it's going to take, Amanda, is for one contractor to talk to you one time about how the trim paint isn't the spec that you ordered, or the unit pricing is off by like $3 per square foot or something like that, and then they'll really start to pay attention to you.
Yes.
So I think there's a component of that as well that comes with knowing what you're saying for both men and women as well. But I think that like thinking about having that internal locus of control, and then yes, having that initial resistance, but then understanding that most people will know that you're in charge. I think that setting that expectation is one thing to overcome. So just work at it and continue to work through it. And I think that is one piece of advice.
Great advice.
Yeah. Okay. So last question I wanted to ask here before we head into our rapid round was it's about vision. And I wanted to ask where Javier and Amanda, where you guys are headed in the next 3 to 5 years. What are your goals? Where do you want to go? And I guess maybe you can look at this as extreme accountability, because this podcast will be on the internet, right? And so in 3 to 5 years from now, in May 2025 or 2026, you're going to be able to look back and see what commitments you've made to yourself. And so let's talk about that right now. Where are you guys headed in the next 3 to 5 years?
You want to take that?
I mean, we talked in detail about where we want to be at the end of the year, and then I think we've set some long-term plans. I think 3 to 5 years from now, we probably are doing real estate full time. We have a family at that point. We do have children. And then we've talked about like how we want to spend our days, more leisurely activities. I'm still doing real estate, but not spending as much time on it. And then
I think we've talked about, in addition to real estate, how we might give back in an educational sense. So I don't know what that looks like necessarily. Maybe we write a book, maybe it's a course or a mastermind or something to that effect, but we both love to talk about the subject. And so, we're going to be doing real estate full time, and probably doing some additional, diversified activities in that space as well.
All right. Well, thank you guys. That's great. I just had to ask that because I think it's important to have that long-term vision to help move you through, and especially in the real estate investing space, it's good to put that out in the ether, right? So that it starts to materialize.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right, cool. Well, thank you guys for all that. We're going to head into the rapid round at the end of our show. It's 5 questions that we ask all of our guests. So we've asked everyone these same questions, and so we're going to go ahead and fire them at you, just like they do on the Bigger Pockets podcast. So
Awesome.
Let's see if we can keep it as short as you guys can, but also individually, so you guys can each answer this individually. All right. So number 1, what book has had the biggest impact on you, and why has it had that impact on you?
Cliche.
Yeah.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard that a lot. It's everyone's top of the list.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't go wrong. I mean, I think that's where most people start.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the big point in that book is, assets are supposed to put money in your pocket, not take money out of your pocket. I think that was one of the bigger points.
Yeah, for me, it was totally just about awareness that there's other ways to earn money outside of trading your time and money for it. And so, talking about practically how to get there, and it's just such a great story told in a parable form. Definitely recommend it to those who haven't listened to it. But I will say one warning to those listeners who haven't read it yet and are going to, is that once the cat's out of the bag, it's out of the bag. You can't put it back in, once you read that book. So it's life-changing.
You can't unsee things.
Yeah, can't unsee it. That's right. All right, number 2. If people wanted...
Javier didn't...
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Well, I thought it was both of theirs.
Oh, okay. I thought...
Oh, yeah, same book.
Same book. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So number 2, if people wanted to emulate your success, what is the first actionable thing that they could do to do that?
Put an offer in on a deal. Just put an offer and keep putting in offers in until you close the deal, and worry about all the other stuff later.
Love that.
Yeah, I would start maybe one step before that.
Spoken from the risk manager.
Awesome.
Classic. I would say, educate yourself as much as you possibly can. There are so many amazing free resources out there. Get really comfortable with the terminology, the basics, the mechanics, and then definitely take action.
Yeah.
There's only so much education you can do before experience actually teaches you, at that point, right? You gotta take the leap.
Yeah, you guys, I'm sorry. I just have to point this out right now. This question, as far as the first actionable thing, you saw 2 completely different perspectives, and you guys are working together, right? So imagine the power that like the spectrum, like the amount of things that you can cover. So for the listeners out there, this is an extra hidden gem in the rapid round that Javier says, go get something under contract, learn practically from doing. And then you've got Amanda who says, well, before you do that, make sure you understand what you're doing first. And I think there's wisdom in both of those.
Yes.
And really, I think it depends on who you are, because if you go under contract and it doesn't work out, then you're going to have to pay your tuition in either, losing money or lost time or whatever, or you pay your tuition in spending time and learning how to do it the right way, or both. And so I think that there's tons of wisdom in just those 2 answers right there. So thank you guys, man. Great stuff. Number 3, what small thing do most people not know about you?
Ooh.
And that's for you individually.
I mean, I think a lot of people, thinking of all sorts of different things. So I'm an only child. I'm the first generation Mexican American. I started an e-commerce company in Vietnam, lived in Vietnam for a year.
Wow. Oh, cool.
Those are some of the tiny
That's cool.
that people don't know about me.
It's such an interesting question. Where my mind went was, I think that on the surface, the way that I work in my W2 job, I'm pretty organized. But I think, and you might agree with this living with me, I think I have a little bit of like organized chaos in my home life. So
That's cool.
I'm
glad
Really organized. But
yeah.
then some things are
But some things are not as organized, and I'm trying to figure out like why that is. But I think some people might assume that just that applies to all areas of my life, and that's not necessarily.
Oh my goodness, it's so relatable.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so
Yeah,
fun.
and I want to share too, like Derek, he's super organized in his technology side, but not outside of that. And then I'm the opposite. I'm organized in everything else, but then my computer files are all over my desktop.
Yeah, and it gives me anxiety because if she may accidentally delete something or, anyway.
Yeah, so we relate.
All right, very cool. Number 4, how do you guys like to unwind and restore your creative juices individually?
I, in the last year and a half or so, have been reteaching myself how to play the piano.
Cool.
So I learned when I was in grade school and then kind of left it for a while. And I bought a little keyboard and have just been spending time, practicing, and I have a long way to go, but it's really fun. And it kind of forces me to focus on something completely different. I wouldn't say that I wouldn't call myself a creative person, but it allows me to kind of tap into that side more so than any other thing that I do.
Cool.
I think it just activities like basketball or having fun. I like playing games, card games, board games, and then meditation.
Great stuff, guys. Awesome. Last question that we have for you is, where's your favorite vacation spot with or without your families?
Ooh. Well, it's been so long since I've had a proper vacation.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. But...
the last amazing trip that I took was to Bali, and that was 2.5 years ago now. So incredible. I would go back in a heartbeat. But I can't wait until we can travel again. We're actually going to Mexico in a couple of weeks, and I cannot wait to really do a vacation right.
Yeah, and I think the best vacations for me, I spend a lot of time in Southeast Asia. I love Vietnam. It's one of my favorite countries to visit, and the beaches there are beautiful. The people are extremely friendly.
Oh, very cool, you guys. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for sharing so much. And now we're at the end of the show, and just wanted to thank you guys for your time, because I know that you guys are very busy people, and we just appreciate you sharing some of your morning or afternoon with us now, actually. With that being said, how can people find out more about you guys if they want to learn how to either partner up with you or learn more about your world? How can they do that?
So we're super direct. I give out my phone number very, very openly, and thankfully, some people take me up on it, which is great. Normally people give business cards and never hear back. So my phone number is 773-495-1747. Happy to hear from anybody who's interested in real estate or looking to partner in the Cleveland market or Seattle now.
Or Seattle. That's right. Very cool. Very, very cool. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for being on the show. We really appreciate it. And for you listeners out there, thank you also for listening all the way to the end. It's really an honor to have you guys listen and listen on some of these amazing conversations that we have with people like Javier and Amanda, who are clearly doing it themselves and really kicking butt out there. So we really appreciate that. And if you want other people to hear more about this, which I hope you do, please like, subscribe, and comment on the content that you've heard, and give us some feedback, because we eat feedback for breakfast. And we also want to appease the algorithm gods so that we can continue to move up the chain in iTunes Store or Spotify or wherever you're listening to this podcast or looking at it on YouTube. We really, really appreciate your support. And if you want to learn more about Elevate Equity and what we do, please visit our website at elevateequity.org. We've got plenty of free resources and lots of great things for you there. You can learn more about these great guests like Javier and Amanda and some other previous guests that we've had on the show. So that being said, that's all that we have for you guys, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. And for Elevate Equity, this is Derek.
And this is Sophie.
And we are signing off. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.